Hey, you guys! Hey, friends! How's it going? Everyone should be excited if you're in Bristol City Schools on the Tennessee side. Y'all are on fall break! It's so exciting! I'm really excited to be on fall break. It's gonna be good just to take a little break, and then when we come back from fall break, like middle school, high school, back in full time. I think all of my friends that I've talked to this week, I've never heard anyone say they're so excited to be back in school until now. So, guys, just know that as you're going back into doing school for five days in 1 week, and not just the 2 days, just know that you are being prayed over, and it's gonna be good. I can't wait to see y'all back in. And those of you who are doing online or homeschooled, I hope that schedule, that you are able to move back into that schedule, because I'm sure that'll change a little bit with everyone going back to school. And then my homeschool friends, you're living big. So I hope that's going well. I would love updates. If I haven't been able to catch up with you recently, shoot me a text. Let's hang out. Whatever. I would love to just connect with you and hear how you're doing. So, guys, I started something new this week. A little out of my comfort zone. I became a sub in the school system. It's been wild. But I'm pretty excited about it. I subbed twice this week, and I had said that I really just want to do middle school and high school because you guys know you're like my people, and I feel really confident in that. But this week I had 6th grade, which was cool. Like we had a lot of fun. And then there was a desperate call, and they needed someone for pre-K. Like little tiny people. I don't usually hang out with little tiny people. And I have to say that they were precious. And I had a really, really great day. The EA was incredible, and so she did everything, and I just kind of helped her. It was fun. And so I am excited that if those of you who are in school, that possibly I could be in your school and I could see you, and that would be really, really awesome. So it's just a way to serve and to be able to see you guys, and I'm excited about that opportunity. Hey, so we are in our 3rd week of our home group series, and kind of the story, we're doing the story, and so like the overall story of the Bible, and what is the big story. And we've just been kind of journeying through that and kind of putting it all together and seeing this overarching theme. And this week, we got to talk about Joseph. Now, when we think about Joseph, a lot of times we immediately go to Mary and Joseph. But I want to back it up. We're actually talking about Abraham descendant. A couple generations later, Jacob has Joseph. And Joseph comes a lot later in Jacob's life, and he becomes a favorite quickly. Now, Joseph has a ton of other brothers that are Jacob's sons, and he's not well liked by his brothers because he's Dad's favorite. And Dad wouldn't even went as far to get him like a special coat. You might have heard like Joseph and the Coat of Many Colors. I remember when I was a little kid, there was a song that like went through all the different colors of Joseph's coat, and it was so beautiful, and like having a lot of colors in a coat at that point was a really, really big deal with all the dyes. And so they were jealous. Like it was obvious that Joseph was Jacob's favorite son. And so he then has a dream that he tells his brothers about, and where he is in a field, and all of these bushels, these sheaves of hay, all start bowing down to him. And so his brothers are like, what? Are you trying to say that you're going to have authority over us at some point, and you're going to be ruler over us? Like, heck no. And so then they're like, we're just going to kill him. Like, let's just get rid of him. Like, we do not want him around. Life would be so much better if he was not around. And they think about killing him, and they're like, oh, we can't just leave him here to die. So they decide to sell him into slavery. And they just go and they sell their brother. And they rip that special coat off, the colorful coat, and they sell their brother to Egypt, and they cover it's an elaborate story. Like, did y'all know that the Bible could get so wild? I mean, it's wild. Wild stories. Craziness happen. They take the coat, and they cover it in blood, like animal blood, and they take it back to Jacob, their dad, and they say, oh, it's so horrible, he got killed today by an animal. And just like, he's gone. Sorry, your favorite kid's gone. And so it's just such a wild story to think about. Well, fast forward a little bit, Joseph works his way up, and he starts having these dreams, and he starts telling the king, Pharaoh, hey, I'm having these dreams, and it seems kind of wild, but like essentially what's going to happen is there's going to be this great famine in Egypt, and if we don't start preparing now and start, piling up food and stocking up food, we're all going to die. And so the king believes him, and they stock up food, and the king puts him over all of that and promotes him, and he's got this very high status within the kingdom, and the famine hits, and it's a long famine. And so people are coming in from all over the place to get food, and Joseph is handing out food one day and looks up, and there are all his brothers, and they are coming to get food, and he sees them, and he realizes exactly, right away who they are, but they have no clue. They are not expecting to see their little brother who they sold into slavery to be one of the top dogs in Egypt. Like, that's not what they're expecting. It's not even on their radar, so they would not even be looking. I don't know, maybe they just hoped that he had, already died or something. It was like an old thought. Not even there. So, Joseph decides that he's going to tell them what's going on, that he knows who they are and who he is. And so that's what we're going to pick up this week. It's Genesis 45, and we're going to read that passage together. So if you have your Bible, grab it, open it, Genesis 45. If you don't have your Bible, pause real quick, go grab it, come back. Genesis 45. Then Joseph could no longer control himself. Before all of his attendants, he cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence!" So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him. Pharaoh's household heard all about it. And Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were so terrified at his presence. I imagine Joseph finally getting up the courage to do this, and all of these emotions just come rushing forward of what's happened to him. And just, can you imagine all the different feelings and stuff that was running through his mind? I'm sure there's tons of anger. I'm sure there's, this has worked out great. And so, but still you sold me. I can't imagine. So Joseph is having a nervous breakdown. He is wailing, and he's trying to talk to his brothers. And you can know what it's like to try to talk when you're wailing. They can't even understand what he's saying. You can also imagine how terrified they were to see him. They probably thought he was dead or something had happened to him, or really? There's no way Joseph's still alive, and there's absolutely no way that he is working for Pharaoh, in this type of position. They had to be just scared. Who is this crazy guy? And there's no way he's Joseph. So eventually he says, "Then Joseph said to his brothers, 'Come close to me.' And when they had done so, he said, 'I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now there has been a famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will be no plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So then, it was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household and ruler of all Egypt. Now hurry back to my father and say to him, this is what your son Joseph says. God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, don't delay. You shall live in the region of Goshen and be near me. You and your children and your grandchildren, your flocks and your herds, all you have. I'll provide for you there because 5 years of famine are still to come. Otherwise, you and your households and all who belong to you will become destitute. You can see for yourselves, and so can my brother Benjamin, that it is really I who am speaking to you. Tell my father about all the honor according to me in Egypt, and about everything you've seen, and bring my father down here quickly." Then he threw his arms around his brother Benjamin and wept, and Benjamin embraced him weeping. And he kissed all his brothers and wept over them, and afterward his brothers talked with him. Now, why Benjamin? Like, why would he be closer to Benjamin? Out of all of his brothers, Benjamin was younger. He would have been really, really young when Joseph was sold, but he also he shared the same mom. Okay, they both had Rachel as their mom, and Rachel actually died in childbirth when she was giving birth to Benjamin, and so there's just a lot there. And so it would have been really emotional for him to see his full brother. And Benjamin wouldn't have been part of selling Joseph. So verse 16. When the news reached Pharaoh's palace that Joseph's brothers had come, Pharaoh and all his officials were pleased. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Tell your brothers, do this. Load your animals and return to the land of Canaan. And bring your father and your families back to me, and I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you can enjoy the fat of the land. You are also directed to tell them, do this. Take some carts from Egypt for your children and your wives, and get your father and come. Never mind about your belongings, because the best of Egypt will be yours." So the sons of Israel did this. Joseph gave them carts as Pharaoh had commanded. And he also gave them provisions for their journey. To each of them he gave new clothing, but to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 sets of clothes. And this is what he sent to his father: 10 donkeys loaded with the best things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain and bread and other provisions for his journey. And then he sent his brothers away, and as they were leaving, he said to them, "Don't quarrel on the way." So they went up out of Egypt and came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan. And they told him, "Joseph is still alive. In fact, he's a ruler of Egypt." Jacob was stunned. He did not believe them. But when they told him everything Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts Joseph had sent to carry him back, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. And Israel said, "I'm convinced." Now God had renamed Jacob Israel. So that's when we see where Israel said, "I am convinced my son Joseph is still alive. I will go and I will see him before I die." Okay, so Jacob goes to Egypt, and we see in chapter 50 where Jacob dies. And so they're burying Jacob, and everyone is mourning and upset. And here we find Joseph again consoling his brothers. It says in chapter 50, verse 19, "But Joseph said to them, 'Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the savings of many lives.'" I read this story and I'm blown away. Like, what is your first reaction? Do you think that you'd be able to look at this situation and say, "Wow, God, you really, you did this all. You brought on this pain for me, but it was for the good." I don't know about you guys, but when I've experienced really, really hard things, it's not easy to say, like, "Yeah, it's okay, guys, I forgive everyone because all that pain you put me through and all that stuff you did to me, I mean, God was using it for the good." That takes a lot of forgiveness. I think that's really, really difficult. What do you think you would do if your brother showed up after all of that? Would you be able to stop and just say, "Hey, I forgive you because God is at work"? Would you be able to say, like, "Hey, you put me through so much pain and torment, and you meant for horrible, horrible things to happen to me, but God was using it for my good, and for the good of Egypt, and for the good of this land, and for the good of you guys. And so it's okay. It's okay. I'm glad it happened." Like, oh my gosh, that's really, really hard to say. That takes really, really big faith and trust and allowing God to really heal our hearts in that situation and to see the big picture. So here we see God just teaching us about who he is and about his relationship with us and how he works with us. I think a lot of times we see God as a karma God. Like, we do something bad, we deserve something bad. And so sometimes we put ourselves in this place of, well, I brought it on myself because I've been sinful. Or we see other people's lives struggling. We automatically think, like, what did they do to, like, upset God? I think sometimes we get that thinking in our head. But here we see that God actually allows us to experience pain and sorrow and brokenness because he's at work in that. That he is using that for our good, that he's using that to transform us and to do these big things. Can you imagine if Joseph would have never gotten sold into slavery? And he would have never had those dreams and been in a place where he could tell Pharaoh that there's about to be a famine? Like, God's kingdom would have been wiped out. God used that horrible situation to grow his kingdom and to do big things and to transform this family and understanding God's provision and God's plan and how beautiful it is. Another verse that I want to share with you this week is Romans 8:28. You guys will flip there in the New Testament. In Romans 8:28, we see this, we kind of see an echo of what Joseph was saying to his brothers. He says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and who have been called according to his purpose." Like, that promise, that truth. God is working for our good. Even in the middle of hard stuff, even in the middle of coronavirus, God is at work and he's working for our good. And we might experience these really, really hard things, but like, he's still at work, and he's using those things to grow the kingdom. He's using those things to put us in a place where we can grow and be transformed. And how incredibly beautiful that is. I think sometimes I get into this place, I don't know, like, I struggle with the brothers. Like, do you realize, like, these brothers did such horrible, horrible things, and then essentially they won the lottery? Like, here we have Joseph saying, like, okay, you can go back and get all your stuff and come back, and I'm going to give you a really, really great place of land in this kingdom. And then we see Pharaoh step in and he says, oh my gosh, I'm going to give you the very best place, the very best land in Egypt. And I'm going to send carts for you to go and, like, get your family and bring it back. But, like, don't even bring your stuff. Because I promise you, everything I'm going to give you is, like, so much better than the stuff that you've had before. Like, how does this happen? These guys were so mean. They did horrible things. Why did they win the lottery? Well, guys, that is redemption. That is grace. That is God exemplifying from the very beginning what he is all about. And we see that carried out throughout the whole entire story. We see this beautiful picture of what we deserve versus what God gives us. And how beautiful that is. And that picture of grace and that picture of redemption. Recently in a Bible study I was doing, it really talked about, like, how when Adam and Eve sinned and their curse, they get this curse of hard stuff, and one of the verses says it's going to be marked by thorns and thistles. Well, guys, fast forward to the crucifixion, and Jesus takes thorns on his head. He takes that curse on him and completely reverses that curse. When we see what happened here with Joseph's brothers, it is foreshadowing exactly what happened at the cross. Guys, we are sinners and we are broken, and we don't deserve what we have. We don't deserve the grace and the mercy that God shows us. Like, I mean, sometimes I think, like, those brothers should have been penalized, and they should have been told, like, get out. Like, you are not getting any food at all. Like, you ruined that opportunity. And there's so many times that in my world I think, shoo, my brokenness and my sinfulness, it has ruined that opportunity. Like, I have pushed myself outside of any opportunity of God using me, or God, giving me something, or doing something for me, or working something out for my good. Like, I've ruined that. And we see in this picture, and we see throughout the story, and we see in this story, and we see throughout Scripture, and we see through the witness and the testimony of our brothers and sisters around us that that's just not true. And from here we learn that God is at work in the brokenness. God is at work in the rough stuff. God is at work in the tears and the moments that we feel like giving up. And He is using that to grow us. He is using that to transform us. He's using that so that we can look back and just be like, oh my goodness. Look how God has been at work. And when I doubted, and when I wasn't sure, and when I thought I'd screwed it all up, God was working for my good. And how beautiful that is. So guys, take heart. Even when you feel like it's a disaster. Even when you feel like things aren't going to get better. Even when you're so frustrated, like, why would this happen to me? What have I done? I really want to challenge you to stop and to not just ignore those feelings, but to realize, like, God is using that brokenness. God is using that sadness. God is using the hard situations in our world for good. He is growing us. He is transforming us. And there's going to be something beautiful on the other side of it. And so hold tight. And as we continue to journey through this, hold tight. Because it is incredible, all the things that we're going to learn as we really journey through this story and dive deep into all that God is unlocking and showing and foreshadowing about who He is and what Jesus has done for us. It's beautiful, guys. All right, so hang tight. Dive into the Word. Think about this passage a little bit. If you memorize Romans 8:28, that'd be a cool thing for us all to do together. And we will see you soon. All right, guys. Have a great fall break. Bye.